GeoFox here, and we are discussing yet again more things that keep happening under this current presidential administration. So, 2 days ago, April 21st, at the beginning of this week, it was made public that Trump's administration is going to be slashing suicide lifeline for LGBTQ plus kids, despite it being the second biggest cause of death for American youth. Now, if you remember, there was this huge discussion around mental health and the need for more mental health resources and support, therapy, counseling, prevention methods so we could be proactive against negative outcomes regarding mental health, such as suicide. But the reality was, this was what the Republicans were using as a justification for why predominantly white cisgender males are committing mass shootings. That was their whole thing. Oh, what about their mental health? Their mental health. That's why they're becoming indoctrinated as white supremacists and deciding to kill everybody because they didn't get their way. Now, fast forward years later, not even years later, because it's an ongoing situation. I mean, every month, unfortunately, in the US, you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be some type of mass shooting. And it could be at church, it could be at the grocery store, it could be at a school, you never know. Welcome to America with the 3Ks. Anyways, now you have President Trump's administration slashing a suicide lifeline for LGBTQ plus kids and youth, while claiming that he's a supporter of mental health. How are you supporting mental health and then taking away avenues for people to get assistance to avoid negative outcomes of their mental health? So let's get into this. Information, as always, is in the description box below. Okay, Trump wants to slash the suicide lifeline for LGBT plus kids, despite it being the second biggest cause of death for American youth. Okay, the 988 crisis line connects thousands of young LGBTQ plus people to counseling every single month. Okay, this is on The Independent. And again, the link to this article will be in the description box below. So, a leaked, and again, you ever notice all of these moves are literally being made because it's leaked information? So, it's not like Trump's administration is publicly coming out and saying this is what they're going to be doing. They're doing all of this behind the scenes, and somehow it's getting leaked, similar to our current situation with Pete Hegseth, who once again has leaked information in another Signal chat, this time to his wife and brother. Again, everything's always being leaked. There's always some type of issue with the people a part of this administration. A leaked federal government budget draft would eliminate services for LGBTQ plus youth who call a national suicide and crisis hotline that reaches thousands of young Americans every month. Under a budget plan for the Department of Health and Human Services, which, look at who our secretary of that is. I mean, everything is just in shambles at this point. Um, Donald Trump's administration would slash all funding for 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, LGBTQ plus youth specialized services, a federal program that runs the 988 phone line and connects callers with counselors and other services. The budget draft first reported by the Washington Post, which who owns the Washington Post? Jeff Bezos, another narcissistic, psychopathic billionaire who could care less about you and your family and anybody outside of them making money off of you suffering. would go into effect October 1st if approved by Congress. And ironically enough, October is what? It's many things. It's the 10th month of the year, but it is also LGBTQ plus History Month. Okay, it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Basically, everything happening that month, Trump's administration is against, because it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's not revolving around white folks and cisgendered heterosexuals. Anyways, since its launch in 2022, so keep in mind, this is coming up on 3 years. Okay, 3 years old. It was launched under President Biden and Vice President Harris administration. 2022, the 988 crisis line has provided more than 1.2 million people with life-saving LGBTQ plus inclusive crisis services, according to the Trevor Project, which is another nonprofit that focuses heavily on LGBTQ plus people and LGBTQ plus youth and young folks. Okay, which responds to nearly half of all of the calls, literally, and text to 988 from LGBTQ plus young folks. Last year, the Trevor Project alone directly served more than 231,000 people through the program. The service for LGBTQ plus youth has received more than 1.3 million calls, texts, or chats since 2022. Suicide remains the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 14 years of age, and the third leading cause of death among 15 to 24-year-olds. And you probably wonder, well, then what's the number one leading cause? Gun violence. Welcome to America with the 3Ks. The leading cause of death among young people is gun violence, and second is suicide. So, one thing about America, they're going to make sure you die. And you're likely not going to be happy here. It just needs to be said. I don't know why we're always, lying to ourselves about the realities that we're living in, aka gaslighting yourself. This country has never been great. Anyways, LGBTQ plus young folks are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their cisgendered heterosexual peers. I wonder why. Oh, that's right. Homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. Nobody's bullying you because you're heterosexual. Nobody's bullying you because you're cisgendered. Nobody's coming up with laws to take away your rights for being cisgendered or heterosexual. Your family isn't sitting up denying you access to existing as you are because you're cisgendered or heterosexual. Uh, you know, just saying, you're actually allowed to date people that you're attracted to when you're cisgendered and heterosexual. You get to go to proms. You get to do all kinds of things that are tailored to you. Meanwhile, the queer folks, you better stay in the closet. You might be disowned by your family and friends. And in many cases, a lot of queer youth end up homeless because of their homophobic, transphobic, and biphobic parents who kick them out. But we're Christian. Right. Anyways, everything about y'all, in my opinion, y'all are literally some of the biggest hypocrites I've ever met. Because you preach all of this love and we should support everyone, but then in practice, you do the exact opposite on a consistent basis. Okay, if that's not lying and manipulation, then I don't know what it is. Anyways, the Trevor Project, which estimates roughly 1.8 million young queer Americans seriously consider suicide every year, and at least one attempt suicide every 45 seconds. There's 60 seconds in a minute. So every minute of the day, you have one LGBTQ plus American, young American, potentially committing suicide. But yet, oh, it's not that bad for you. Oh, Who cares about who people vote for? Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Great. Then why do you have every 45 seconds a young person who happens to not be heterosexual or not be cisgendered committing suicide? If it's so great and everything's equal, then why do we have that? Because we don't have the same rates happening to the cis folks and the heterosexuals. And the outcoat part is everybody is committing suicide in this country across demographics because of how shitty the quality of life is here. Anyways, suicide prevention is about risk, not identity. Trevor Project CEO James Black said in a statement. Ending services for LGBTQ plus youth through the crisis line, quote, will not just strip away access for millions of LGBTQ plus kids and teens, it will put their lives at risk. Black said, quote, these programs were implemented to address a proven, unprecedented, and ongoing mental health crisis among our nation's young people with strong bipartisan support in Congress. And this is what's hilarious, right? It was implemented in Biden and Harris' first term, but this also will further prove how everything with Trump is hypocrisy, double standards, and just crazy. Because guess who signed the law? Guess who signed it into law? It was signed into law by President Trump prior to him being voted out. So again, everything he does is literally bullshit. Okay, like at this point, he doesn't this is why I keep putting emphasis on this. He don't care about any of y'all. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're heterosexual, cisgendered, biological, gay, queer, white. If you're not serving his best interest, you have no value whatsoever. And y'all want to talk about pandering. Is this not pandering? You know, one minute it's queers for Trump. Next minute, I'm taking your rights. One minute, it's, it's the Afro Americans, the blacks for Trump. Next minute, I'm being racist and doing all these horrible things in your face. Like, this is narcissism 101. Okay, like you can't trust them. Okay, everything is a facade. Everything is literally a gimmick. Pay attention. Because again, you sit down and you think, well, why would we have strong bipartisan support from Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and at the time, President Trump signed this into law just for them to allegedly be working towards taking it away. In 2020, during his first term in office, Trump signed the National Suicide Hotline Designation Act into law, establishing the number 988 as a crisis hotline. Now, if you remember, I literally stated at the beginning of this video, at the time, that was the Republicans' response to the ongoing mass shootings that are typically committed by white cis males. Oh, it's the mental health. Okay. The thing about it is, and this is sad, but when people are struggling with mental health, they typically are going to harm themselves. These mass shooters are misogynistic, racist, white supremacists. They are not suffering through mental health. They are suffering because they don't want people of color, women, LGBTQ plus, queer folks to have any representation or rights. So therefore, I didn't get my way, so I'm going to kill everybody at school. I don't like you because you're black, so I'm going to shoot up your church or I'm going to shoot up the grocery store that you go to. That's what that is. That's not I'm suicidal and suffering from mental health. Okay, but okay. The Trevor Project was initially the only provider supporting LGBTQ plus people through the hotline during the pilot phase in 2022. People calling or texting the number can press 3 or reply PRIDE to connect with counselors specifically trained to support LGBTQ plus people up to the age of 25 years old. If the budget is approved, there would no longer be an option for LGBTQ plus youth and young folks to connect with counselors that are trained to support them. A proposed budget would continue to fund the lifeline at 2024 levels, but it eliminates the 2024 congressionally directed set aside within the 988 for specialized services for LGBTQ plus youth, according to the leaked draft. Okay? Uh, the Independent, which is a news media source, has requested a comment from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Quote, in effect, the loss of this funding would result in a loss of resources we rely on to hire, train, and support crisis counselors and to reach LGBTQ plus youth across the country amid growing demand for these life-saving services. Quote, Jansen Wu, the Trevor Project's Vice President of Advocacy and Government Affairs, said in a statement to The Independent. Within his first days in office, the president signed several executive orders. President Trump, second term, signed several executive orders directly targeting LGBTQ plus Americans, including explicitly removing federal recognition of transgender and intersex people and upending civil rights protections intended to combat LGBTQ plus discrimination, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. The administration has also upended access to gender affirming healthcare for trans youth and moved to block trans athletes from competing in women's sports. Trump has also directed the Department of Defense to remove trans service members from all branches of the military. But again, it doesn't matter who we vote for, and it's not that big of a deal, and we still have to live our lives, so who cares what's happening to you? That's what we're constantly dealing with on a consistent basis, and it's not just from President Trump and his administration. The sad part about this is typically from your family and friends. And that's what's so shocking. It's like people that are supposed to love and care about you are showing that they don't love and care about you every single day. And that is exactly why I keep putting emphasis on this. You really don't have many allies, do you? And the people that you thought were going to be your allies are typically the ones that don't care and are constantly downplaying your lived reality. And this is exactly why when, we always talk about chosen families in the queer community, and this is why a lot of times your blood family are not going to be supportive. They could care less, and they're going to be willingly working with your opposition. So you have to find your chosen family. AKA, you have to create family with people that are like you. Because I'm here to tell you, and you can pretty much ask nearly so many, not every person has the same experiences, obviously, but so many queer people have friendsgiving, friendsmas, because their biological family is absolutely horrible. And let's be honest, the few days that you do get to have off from work, you're not trying to spend it with people that are actively against everything you stand for. Okay, and being questioned on, why you're dressing this way, and or you're not able to bring your partner to the family dinner because your family is homophobic or transphobic or biphobic. People don't want to be dealing with that. So people have opted for Friendsmas and Friendsgiving, where you get to be around people that actually care about you. So that's just one of the many things that marginalized communities end up doing because you're not supported by mainstream society. And once again, when folks want to talk about how everything's equal and that's why we don't need diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you're blowing it out of proportion. Yet we're constantly having rights and freedoms stripped away from us. And now you're telling the children that the Republicans and the conservatives love to claim that they care so deeply about. That's why they want y'all to be forced into having births that you don't consent to. Um, but yet simultaneously don't want you to have health insurance. Also don't want you to have shelter. Also don't want you to have access to food and water that's affordable and healthy and safe. Yeah, but they're so for the youth and children and families. Yet they are supporting the potential suicide of millions of people, and they don't care. But they're Christian. Praise Jesus, right? Anyways, that has been the ongoing reality of a lot of queer and LGBTQ plus youth, young folks, middle-aged folks, and elders in this country, as well as other marginalized identities, marginalized demographics. Okay. And literally every single day, every single week, every single month, you can pretty much guarantee there is going to be some crazy executive order or something being told to us that, we're cutting on this funding, we're taking back this. So much for progression, because it doesn't really seem like we have much of it in this country. Anyways, additional information is in the description box below. One thing that I will say is it's going to be on the queer community to fulfill these services that no longer exist. Those of us that have the capacity mentally, physically, financially, emotionally to give back to queer youth, look out for queer young folks, look out for queer LGBTQ plus people in general, it's gonna have to be on us. Many of us have already been doing this for quite a while. I strongly recommend that you get involved with your local community and find your chosen family. Reach back and help others. And also make sure that you are taking the time for yourself. Make sure that you are getting enough rest, enough food, enough water. Make sure that you still make time to have some type of peace and joy and happiness, doing things that bring joy and happiness to you, right? And also, yeah, you're going to need community. You're definitely going to need community. So, again, I personally will continue to do what I've been doing for well over a decade in my community. So, again, more information is in the description box below. Sending love, strength, and positive energy to LGBTQ plus youth and young folks, especially because again, a lot of us that are now in our 30s and up, we were the young folks in the past, and many of us didn't have those resources. So we literally grew up suicidal. We grew up in homophobic households, transphobic households. We went to school with transphobic and homophobic people on a consistent basis, which is why a lot of us were in the closet, living double and quadruple lives because we weren't allowed to exist as who we are. And now they're trying to tell us to go back into the closet. So, yeah, this is what we're talking about. And this is why you see so many people, such as myself, that, we're loud and out and proud about who we are, and we're going to continue to fight back.